Last week's landmark Supreme Court ruling striking down affirmative action will no doubt transform the world of college admissions forever. The decision fell along ideological lines, with 6-justice conservative supermajority invalidating admissions programs at Harvard and the University of North Carolina. Our next guest says the U.S. Supreme Court's decision to ban affirmative action in university admissions strikes at the heart of the American dream, the promise of substantive equality of opportunity. Joining us now, we've got Antara Haldar, who is the Associate Professor of Empirical Legal Studies at the University of Cambridge. Thank you so much for taking the time here with us today. And as we were all kind of really looking in through what was the decision of last week and trying to, at the best we could, in real time decipher what it actually meant, from your own perspective, what type of precedent has this now set, and what kind of reversal is this?
Thanks so much for having me on the show, Brad. I feel really strongly about this topic, so it's really great to have a chance to chat with you about this. I think that the precedent that it sets is extremely negative, and I think that the ramifications of it are going to be very adverse for the American dream. In the legal academy, we talk about how a lot of society operates in the shadow of the law. The Supreme Court is the sort of conscience keeper of the nation and sets the rules by which many organizations, including critical ones that are sort of the custodians of the American dream, like Harvard or UNC, operate. And the precedent is going to make it very difficult for universities to put in place the kinds of diverse classrooms that have made the American university the incredible places that they are. The decision also risks having spillovers for corporate boardrooms and a whole range of, all the organizations in American life, really.
So, Antara, Diane here. I want to ask you, so when this decision came down, I know I probably shouldn't have been surprised by it, but I was. I reached out to several friends who were, just say black friends who went to Harvard to ask for their thoughts. They were saddened by this news. We know that Harvard tried to maintain what it had put in place in terms of affirmative action. And sure, it may not have necessarily been a perfect recipe. At the same time, it is just one of the items that could counter years and different types of issues of systemic racism. So what does a university like Harvard or any other university need to do now in terms of putting in place some type of system to account for diversity, especially when you look at the data that is supportive of diversity, adding to the economy, to growth in the economy?
Yeah, absolutely. So like you, Diane, I was not, I was surprised by it, although I shouldn't have been. A lot of my colleagues were talking about the fact that they were expecting this ruling. I was sort of hoping against hope that we wouldn't end up with it. I have spent the last 5 years partially at Harvard, and, I have a lot of incredible colleagues there, including, students and colleagues of color who are really deeply saddened by this. I think it's a real conundrum what admissions committees do now. My main appointment is at the University of Cambridge, and it's a law faculty that is over 500 years old, and we're not able to do at Cambridge what the top American schools have been able to do and were allowed to do in the light of affirmative action. And so it's, Harvard has just appointed an African-American president, and it's sort of, there are many ironies to this decision. The fact that it comes at the mark of the 15-year anniversary of the Obama election, the fact that it comes at this landmark moment for Harvard as a university. There's some work that admissions committees will be able to do through using sort of the socioeconomic status as a consideration in admissions, and there has been a reference in the ruling to the fact that college essays can refer to experiences of adversity, and that race can sort of show up there. But I think that with in the light of this ruling, it's going to have a chilling effect on admissions policies on diversity and of classes across the nation. We've seen this already in states like Michigan and California.
When we think about some of the Supreme Court decisions that have come down over the past year now, the Supreme Court has ruled on pro-choice. Supreme Court has had to deliver a ruling on affirmative action as well. When we think about these as economic implications that play out over a longer term period of time as well, is there kind of a larger kind of frame of mind, or at least way of thinking around how some of the decisions from a more politically or more ideologically type of moved Supreme Court is actually impacting the economy long term?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, diversity is in everyone's interest, and it's in the economy's interest. There's huge amounts of data to show this, and I think that what the Supreme Court is doing in making decisions in this that have this clear ideological slant is risking killing the golden goose in a certain sense. The very aspects of America that give it its unique vitality and unique sort of political and economic power stem from the fact that in less than 250 years of the existence of the country, and in less than really 40 years of affirmative action type policies being in place, that we've seen, the ascent of Obama, that we've seen more diversity in various sort of domains than we've seen in any other country. And the economic ramifications of this are going to be extremely negative. I mean, I think that the court is letting down its own sort of jurisprudence. It's introducing a lot of uncertainty into the law, and it's doing a lot of harm to not only its jurisprudential legacy, but the economy.
Antara, I got to ask one other question. I want to read something one of my friends said to me, part of what he said to me. I can't think of one black person I know from Harvard who didn't have the horsepower to be there. Even the athletes were on point. And to paraphrase the rest, basically you essentially couldn't say the same thing about mainstream students there, white kids, to quote. So I gotta ask, does what has happened now severely handicap the chances for black students, or, there's the side that would argue that it didn't help anyway, and while still giving white kids a better chance now?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the thing to keep in mind about the affirmative action policy and why this ruling is so shocking is that the protection was so limited to begin with. You had to be a stellar candidate to even get in that application pile and be considered. And these were kids who had not necessarily gone to Phillips Exeter or Andover and did not have the sort of helicopter parents sort of proving them for a Harvard admission from the time that they were born. I mean, which was sort of Obama's story. It's been, my story. Everyone there was incredibly meritorious. It was just that tiny little edge that you got, as a result of the policies. So, and it's done, nothing but good. I mean, not just for the African American community, but for all minority communities. I'm the first person of color to be appointed, global person of color to be appointed to the faculty at Cambridge, and I can tell you that it's not pleasant or effective being the only person in the room. You need the diversity. So, I mean, I think we're going to need to mull on ways forward and on ways of keeping diversity alive. Harvard has made a statement that it is committed to doing that, but there's no point pretending that this isn't a really serious setback, and that it's going to make it difficult for admissions committees and corporate hiring and have serious economic spillover and really sort of impoverish the diversity that makes America great.
All right. Well, we will have to leave it there for now. Thank you so much for joining us today. Antara Haldar, Associate Professor of Empirical Legal Studies at the University of Cambridge. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me.